To many Americans, the phrase "made in Japan" once equaled low-quality and rudimentary technology. However, this perception shifted dramatically following the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, where they encountered a remarkable piece of Japanese engineering, the formidable Mitsubishi A6M Zero. In the ensuing months, the United States military struggled to contend with this agile fighter, which quickly gained a legendary status. The Zero seemed omnipresent in the Pacific, boasting an unprecedented range and the ability to outmaneuver any Allied aircraft. More alarming was that it was a seaborne aircraft launched from Japanese carriers, which were expected to be inferior to land-based fighters due to space constraints. Yet, the Zero outclassed every land warplane. The United States went to great lengths to capture one of these aircraft to understand its construction and power. However, the Japanese guarded their technology fiercely, often crashing their own planes to avoid capture. On July 12, 1942, a significant event occurred when a United States Navy patrol crew landed on the island of Aleutians after a series of unusual events. They discovered an aircraft flipped upside down, yet mostly intact, and promptly transported it to Naval Air Station in San Diego, California. The mysteries of the A6M Zero were on the verge of being revealed. American intelligence had received reports of a new Japanese fighter as early as the summer of 1940, when the Zero decimated ancient Chinese biplanes defending their homeland. Experts like Claire Lee Chennault warned the West about Japan's impressive fighters, describing them as like hawks in a chicken yard. They shot down the Chinese fighters before the defenders knew what hit them. Despite these warnings, Americans discounted what they believed were exaggerated Chinese accounts, confident that Japanese technology would be inferior to their own. It wasn't until the shocking attack on Pearl Harbor that the truth became undeniable. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero was indeed a formidable machine, exceptionally fast, agile, and with an incredible climb rate. Early encounters often ended tragically for United States pilots, as the agile Zero easily outmaneuvered them in dogfights, sending them plummeting into the sea. American pilots lacked the experience of their Japanese counterparts, who had years of combat experience against China, giving them an aggressive and seasoned battle approach. The American fighters, such as P-40 Warhawks and F-4F Wildcats, were slightly faster than the Zero, but they could not match its maneuverability and were frequently shot down. Even British pilots, accustomed to engaging German and Italian fighters, found their European tactics ineffective against the agile Zeros and their skilled pilots. Unknown to the Allies, Japan only had 521 active Zeros at that time. However, their extensive range gave the impression of a much larger presence. Rumors and conspiracy theories emerged, suggesting the Zero was actually a Western design. This myth persisted for years, even bolstered by Howard Hughes in 1954, who suggested nobody expected the Japanese to have an airplane that would be at all competitive, sir. It was quite apparent to everyone that it had been copied from the Hughes H-1 plane. During the war's early stages, Zeros achieved an astonishing 12-to-1 kill ratio against Allied aircraft, far surpassing the Japanese pre-war estimate of a 5-to-1 advantage. Consequently, the Allies were forced to avoid dogfights and instead adopted boom and zoom tactics, diving into the Zeros from the clouds, firing, and quickly diving away. This strategy leveled the playing field, as the lightweight Zero couldn't keep up with British and American fighters during a dive. However, implementing this maneuver on a large scale was challenging. Allied pilots were trained for dogfights, and changing their ingrained behavior required time and additional training. Moreover, some American commanders viewed the tactic as cowardly and urged pilots to continue dogfighting, resulting in significant losses. Despite the Zero's impressive performance, its dominance in the Pacific skies was not destined to last. The aircraft appeared nearly perfect to Allied strategists, but it had several critical flaws that could be exploited. Japan hoped for a swift, brutal war that would force the United States to sue for peace, allowing them to continue their Asian conquests. As the war dragged on, a complex race began. The Americans needed to capture an intact Zero to uncover its weaknesses, while the Japanese had to protect their prized fighter and end the conflict swiftly. Japanese pilots were instructed to destroy or crash their Zeros to prevent the Allies from capturing the technology, even at the cost of their own lives. During the Pearl Harbor attack, Shigenori Nishikaichi's Zero was damaged by a P-36 and couldn't return to its carrier. He rerouted to Niihau Island, mistakenly thought by Japanese intelligence to be uninhabited. Upon landing, he crashed into a metal fence, injuring himself. Local resident Howard Kaliohano found the unconscious pilot and confiscated his pistol and documents. Unaware of the Pearl Harbor attack, Kaliohano took the pilot to his home. When communication attempts failed, he summoned 3 Japanese immigrant friends to translate. The pilot revealed the attack on Pearl Harbor, but they kept it from Kaliohano and his wife. The following day, islanders learned of the Pearl Harbor attack via radio, causing chaos. Kaliohano informed Nishikaichi he would hand over the documents to American authorities. Islanders posted guards to watch the pilot, but the Japanese immigrants aided him, even attempting to bribe Kaliohano for the documents, which contained attack plans, transmission codes, and personal papers. Knowing the importance of preventing American access to his documents or plane, the immigrants helped the pilot escape, taking a guard's weapon and heading to Kaliohano's house to retrieve the documents. They fired on Kaliohano, who managed to escape, sparking panic among the villagers who sought refuge in caves. The pilot and his allies tried contacting the Japanese military using the Zero's radio, but failed. They then set the warplane on fire to ensure its secrets remained hidden. Taking another local couple hostage, they demanded the husband bring Kaliohano and the documents. The husband deceived them, returning to save his wife, leading to a brutal confrontation. Though severely injured, his wife managed to take down the Japanese pilot, while the remaining enemy took his own life. The documents reached American authorities, but the plane's destruction rendered its remains useless. Days before the Battle of Midway, the Japanese launched an offensive on the Aleutian base at Dutch Harbor. Among the Zero pilots was Petty Officer Tadayoshi Koga, whose fighter suffered a hit, severing its oil line, forcing an emergency landing. Spotting an open field on Akutan Island, Koga attempted a landing, unaware of the swamp beneath. The Zero flipped upon impact, trapping Koga, who drowned. The Zero, however, remained mostly intact. A month later, a Catalina crew from Patrol Squadron 41 discovered the fighter, and on July 12, 1942, a United States Navy patrol team arrived to examine it. They found a Mitsubishi Zero in decent condition, salvaging it and sending it to San Diego for repairs. Painted in United States Navy colors, the aircraft was rigorously tested, revealing critical flaws that would end the Zero's dominance in the Pacific. If you enjoyed this content, visit our channel for more stories like this. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Also let us know in the comments where you are watching from.